Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
Then Senator Warren, thank you for joining me. First things first, what do Democrats want in order to get this economic stimulus bill over the finish line?
Okay, so part one is we want to make sure that we are investing in the health and safety of the American people. That means enough money going to hospitals and community health centers and that there's free testing for everyone. Part two, we want to make sure that money is going to the grassroots level. And that means expanded unemployment insurance so that we're covering gig workers and part-time workers and raising the amount. We need that money in people's pockets. We need cash in people's pockets. But also we need to be thinking about other ways to relieve the stress on families. Canceling student loan debt, for example, means a lot more money in the pockets of a lot of young people. Adding $200 a month to Social Security and disability payments for the next couple of years helps people who are living at the economic margin. But we want to make sure that's where help is going. Third one, we need to get relief out for small businesses. You know, these small businesses employ a lot of people, and right now they've been shut down, certainly through no fault of their own. They need help, and they need it fast. And then fourth, any kind of help that goes to the big industries has got to come with some strings attached, which means making sure that taxpayer dollars are not used just for stock buybacks and to make sure that that CEOs get their bonuses this year, but that it's really used to support payroll. That's what we want to see.
Well, Senator, let me follow up on that fourth point that you made, because sure. I think that's based upon my reporting where a lot of the sticking points still lie. President Trump, for his part, has said he doesn't want to see stock buybacks either. But behind the scenes, when the sausage is getting made in this bill, can you get specific for me and for our audience on specifically, Senator, when it relates to that $500 billion for larger businesses, what you think needs to get changed in order for this to get voted on this evening?
Sure. And I want to say I'm glad to hear that the president is in favor of some of the strings attached to this money. But it can't just be that we ask the businesses to promise that they're going to do this. We have to write it into law. So restrictions on stock buybacks are part of it. That the money is being used to support payroll is an important part of it. That the companies are truly investing in their workers, not using this money for executive pay, for example. And that there is an oversight panel that makes sure that the money is spent according to the law and according to the promises that have been made. An oversight panel that has real teeth. And part of that means that the corporate executives who take this money have to sign under penalty of law that their companies are complying with all of the laws and rules and regulations. That's how we make sure that if taxpayer dollars are being used, then the taxpayers are the ones who are truly being served here.
Senator, it's Jonathan here. Great to have you with us on the program, and thanks for giving us your time. They say that perfection is the enemy of the good. Are you looking for the perfect bill?
Look, You always want to aim for perfect. That's exactly what we should be doing. But do I recognize there'll be some compromises along the way? Of course there will be compromises along the way. But understand this. We have to have strings attached before we give $500 billion away to giant corporations. We need to make sure that money isn't just going to big corporations, that it's going to people who are struggling to pay student
Senator,
loan
let's
debts
talk about
right
it.
now. It makes no sense.
What compromises
to do student loans.
are you willing to make?
Well, how about one on student loans? I'd like to see us forgive all of the debt on student loans.
That's not a compromise. What compromise are you willing to make in the bill that's been put forward so far?
If you'd let me finish.
Sure.
I would like to see all of the debt forgiven on student loans. Right now, the proposal on the table is to forgive the interest and to forgive $10,000 worth of debt for each student. I could live with that. I think that's a good place for us to start, and it relieves the pressure on a lot of people who are living really close to the economic margin. The notion that the federal government should be out there squeezing dollars out of people who are losing their jobs, who are living in this time of economic uncertainty, makes no sense at all. It's harmful to the individuals and it's harmful to our economy. So I see a compromise there. Let's do that. Increasing payments on Social Security and disability. Look, I'd like to see them go even higher, but $200 a month every month for the next couple of years, that would lift more than 5 million people out of poverty. It would mean that seniors who are locked at home right now and have to use food delivery services and spend more on health care will at least have a little cushion in their budget. Those are the kinds of things I'd like to see us do, and I'm perfectly willing to compromise on the numbers. In fact, I think we've already done that. But we need the Republicans to move to say, yes, they are willing to help on student loans. They are willing to help on unemployment insurance. They are willing to help on Social Security and disability. And let's negotiate over the dollar.
Senator, we're up against the clock, so I have to keep jumping in, so forgive me. In this bill, there are checks for everyday Americans. The reason this bill hasn't gone through is because of Democratic senators. Do you want to be the person that's stopping people from getting their checks to meet their rent at the end of this month?
Excuse me, the reason this bill has not gone through is because of Republican senators and because of a Republican leadership that pretended to negotiate for 3 days with the Democrats, and then at the end of that time basically introduced their own bill that did not have compromises and that did not make sure that the money is going down to the grassroots. Look, it's going to take people from both parties to get this through. Now, we've laid out what our principles are, and that is you can't give $500 billion to giant industry and not help people at the grassroots.
So, Senator, why don't we strip out the bailout side of the bill, spend the rest of the week debating that, and then get through the rest and get it done quickly so people can actually receive some money?
So I'd love to strip out the bailout part of the bill and just concentrate on student loans, unemployment insurance, on increasing Social Security, on getting help to small businesses, and on making sure we're getting the money to our hospitals and our testing facilities. I'm glad to do that, Bill. Let's do it right now.
Can we strip out the payments, the checks to Americans, and can we do that today? Senator, I don't think there's enough urgency on Capitol Hill. I've been frustrated with this for weeks now on both sides of the aisle. You guys can get this done. The only thing stopping it from happening is yourselves on both sides of the aisles. And there's no point coming on the TV shows today on the networks and saying it's the Republicans' fault. Because you know what's happening on the other networks? It's the Democrats' fault. It's all of your fault. Get around the table, strip it out, pass the bill with the checks in so people can get those checks in 1 week, in 2 weeks' time.
So I am glad to sit down and get money into the pockets of people right now. I think we can do that with cash. I think we can do that by cutting student loan payments. We can do that by expanding unemployment insurance, and we can do that by expanding Social Security. I've been talking about all four of these for weeks now. I have put forward those proposals. And right now, we don't have Republicans to negotiate with on those issues. They're not there. So you tell me what you want to do. You want to bring one on this program? That's fine with me.
I will do just that, Senator.
But this is the kind of thing that puts money directly into the hands of people who are suffering. I want to do that right now. I will stay here. I will work around the clock to make that happen. But we've got to keep the focus on money into the hands of people who are struggling right now. We are not going to rebuild this economy by putting a bunch of money at the top. We need that money going down.
Senator, I totally agree. It needs to happen quickly. But let me tell you, we won't be playing the blame game and letting you guys dictate who is to blame. If you guys don't get this done, it's every single one of you that needs to be held responsible for it. Both parties, the whole of Washington. Senator Warren, great to catch up with you. And Bloomberg's Kevin Cerruti, thank you very much for joining us as well.
It is Tuesday, the 24th of March of 2020, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam, and our daily special is Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. Just a small scant dash, a mere pinch of smoked hot Hungarian paprika will make all the difference in the world. It will indeed. Also, roasted corn. You know, I like to soak my corn in lime juice. Lemon juice is okay too, but I like to do it in lime juice for a considerable time. And then I like to roast it. In the husk, by the way. In the husk. So you knife all of those kernels into the chowder. It's very lovely. Just giving you a fair warning, corn is in the chowder here at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Hey, have you lined up Grandma and Grandpa to go to the Soylent Green distribution center? Because I'm a grandparent and I will not die for this economy. I don't care what Uncle Sam says. I will not do it. Wow. We even have like 70-year-old Texans going out there saying, yeah, I think that, grandparents dying so that the youngins will have an economy is a good thing. You know, my attitude is there won't be an economy left for the kiddies if you die. I mean, the idea is to keep amassing that fortune so you can pass it on. What they're talking about now is getting you out of there before you've been able to recoup what you've lost so that you can pass it on. And who's going to get it? Not the kiddies. Nope. The 70-year-old Texan's telling everybody else his age, oh, yeah, go ahead. Uncle Sam wants you to die for the economy. You, not me, you. Wow. That's the kind of thinking they got in Texas. What's in the water down there? I heard the water table has some sort of corrosive element in it. Well, we've suspected that about Texas for a long time now, but I have a lot of friends in Texas, and they don't seem to be afflicted as such. What the hell happened to Dan Patrick? I'll tell you what happened to him. He might have been dropped on his head. They do that in Randian culture. Just let him die. Speaking of which, Rand Paul. I remember a Ron Paul debate when he was running for prez. And the question was, what if somebody gets sick? Don't we as a society have a duty to keep them well and keep them alive? And the libertarian bros, the Ron Paul aficionados, sycophants, stood up. There were several of them, all at the same time, stood up and yelled, let them die. Because, according to Ayn Rand, it is a sin to help another human being if it doesn't help you and your selfish desires. Because selfish desires is considered a good thing in the Randian cult. So that's where we are now in this pandemic. No wonder. Hey, I was in the store the other day before. Oh, by the way, Kate Brown signed the executive order yesterday, legally mandating that we all stay inside. Now, of course, I'm taking care of my elderly mom, even though I'm right in the range. But I get to go to the store. I think I can still go to the pot shop. I'm going to ask the pot shop guy, hey, how about some drone deliveries? Take my money, bring me the pot. Buy drone. Social distancing and all. But it looks like the pot shops and a lot of liquor stores are staying open because they are essential to living, at least here in Oregon. So I can go to the store and buy needed goods, which we will need, because that's why they're needed goods. And that is good. So I can do that. Probably not going to be going on drives to the park since the parks are closed. And Trump wants to lift the social distancing suggestion in just a few days. He gave it a 15-day window. And apparently we're about halfway through that window already since he announced it last night. So I think that he wants people to die for the economy. Will anybody be getting a Congressional Medal of Honor? Will they be getting a green Purple Heart for dying for Wall Street? No, thank you. I don't want it because I'm living. At least I'm going to try. And if I die, it won't be to make the economy better. Jeez. All right, what's on the rest of the menu here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy? Well, at the top, you would think that the staff at Bloomberg Business would have talked to Mike. Don't take on Liz. Well, they tried to corner and blame her over the stalling of Trump's bailout, but she had a plan for that. And nevertheless, she persisted. On the rest of the menu, Pacific Gas and Electric will plead guilty to 84 counts of involuntary manslaughter after its fraying electrical grid ignited the 2018 Northern California wildfires. Texas is using the coronavirus outbreak as cover to ban most abortions in the state because that's what they do. Anything that they can get an excuse to take away your rights, especially if you're a woman, they will do. And after a conference call with the White House on battling COVID-19, the nation's governors did not get the assurances they were hoping to hear. Well, when you're negotiating with Trump, you can expect one thing, and that's massive chaos. Lie, lie, lie. That's what you have to expect. After the break, we then move to the chef's table where Hungarians are hoarding guns in fear of massive disorder if severe shortages set in as the pandemic spreads. Boy, this is getting more and more like Road Warrior every day now, isn't it? And Angela Merkel's initial coronavirus test came back negative, but she will undergo further testing and care. She is, after all, 65 years old. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. At the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, to the rightish of the page, is our chat room link, monitored by Kelly Lincoln. Thank you, Kelly. To the leftish of the chat room link at the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, you will then notice the link to our Patreon page. Do please become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio. That recurring contribution helps us keep the lights on, amass the funds needed to get the needed machinery that needs to be replaced on a constant basis, don't you know? Yeah, planned obsolescence, that's back in the game, and it has been for quite some time. There are vast numbers of young'uns who don't know anything but planned obsolescence. Well, let me tell you, it wasn't always so. Not always. And by becoming a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio, you allow us to fulfill our civic duty as mandated and originally intended by the founders so many eons ago. And we thank you for your generosity in allowing us to fulfill that duty. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, please do at Netroots Radio. Tom takes care of that. Thank you, Tom. I take care of at Justice Putnam with affected accents for entertaining value. Do tell. And I post the show notes in Link's diary on Daily Co's about 10 minutes before showtime, and then get that out on social media, except for Facebook. And you know the story of Facebook. I'm now, I think, 23 days left in this suspension during a pandemic, when apparently Bill Barr wants to arrest people and put them in jail for putting out fake news, and I'm unable to counter all the fake news that people should be going to jail over. Maybe it was a plan. Maybe. And let's see. You can follow the show on Twitter at Cookbook West without affected accent, and pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, and wherever fine podcasts can be found, mixed in with all the rest of us. Okay, let's get on with this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. And it comes out of the Associated Press by Michael Litke and Olga R. Rodriguez. Pacific Gas and Electric will plead guilty to 84 counts of involuntary manslaughter for a swath of death and destruction left behind after its fraying electrical grid ignited a 2018 wildfire that destroyed 3 Northern California towns and drove the nation's largest utility into bankruptcy. What? No, they didn't drive them into bankruptcy. They used bankruptcy as a strategy to keep from paying what their fines are. Let's be clear. The plea agreement announced yesterday, Monday, resolves the charges facing PG&E as part of a previously sealed indictment in Butte County. Now, it marks the second time this decade that the company's neglect has culminated in it being deemed a criminal. Utilities are people too, my friend. PG&E already is serving a 5-year criminal probation imposed after it was convicted of 6 felony counts for falsifying records and other safety violations underlying a natural gas explosion that blew up a neighborhood in 2018 and killed 8 people in San Bruno, California. As with its prior criminal conviction, no one from PG&E will go to prison for the company's felony crimes. Instead, its plea agreement with the Butte County District Attorney's Office calls for PG&E to pay a measly $4 million fine, the maximum allowed. It will also help pay for efforts to restore access to water for residents affected by the loss of a canal destroyed by what became known as the Camp Fire. David Crary, Jim Fairtuno, and Julie Carr-Smythe of the Associated Press bring us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. The Governor and Attorney General of Texas are moving to ban most abortions in the state during the coronavirus outbreak, declaring they don't qualify as essential surgeries. Of course not. It's Texas. Attorney General Ken Paxton said Monday that the order issued over the weekend by Governor Greg Abbott barred any type of abortion that is not medically necessary to preserve the life or health of the mother. And they're trying to get rid of that too, I'm sure. Failure to comply with the order can result in penalties of up to $1,000 or 180 days of jail time. No one is exempt from the governor's executive order on medically unnecessary surgeries and procedures, including abortion providers, Paxton said. Those who violate the governor's order will be met with the full force of the law. Wow. Using a pandemic to push down your authoritarian Christo-fascism. Who knew? Who knew? The issue also has flared in Ohio, where abortion clinics received letters on Friday from Republican Attorney General Dave Yost, ordering them to cease all non-essential surgical abortions. Yost wrote that the procedures violate a March 17 order issued by the state health director. However, representatives of Ohio clinics said they were in compliance with the health director's order and plan to continue providing abortions. Amid the moves by Ohio and Texas, a coalition of anti-abortion groups urged its allies across the nation to ask governors to ban most abortions on the grounds they were not essential. Abortion rights leaders nationwide decried the tactic, saying it was an affront to women grappling with difficult decisions amid the disruptions of the pandemic. In Ohio, abortion clinics plan to remain in operation. Jennifer Branch, an attorney for the Women's Med Center of Dayton, said the clinic had already taken steps to minimize the use of personal protective equipment, one of the issues raised in the state's order. The CEOs of two Planned Parenthood affiliates in Ohio said their clinics also were in compliance, having cut back on the use of equipment that is in short supply. Of the Associated Press brings us this last offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. The nation's governors kept pressing the federal government for supplies and economic aid to battle the new coronavirus in a conference call with the White House yesterday, Monday, without getting the assurances they were hoping to hear. Maryland Governor Larry Hogan, the chairman of the National Governors Association, said the governors are seeking more testing, ventilators, and personal protective equipment like masks for healthcare providers. The call with Mike Pence lasted about an hour and 15 minutes. Oh, he wanted them to pray. That's what he wanted them to do. There aren't enough of all these items, and we're pushing to get our supply wherever we can. And we're pushing the federal government to produce more of them, distribute more of them, and hopefully we'll get some progress, Hogan said earlier in the day. There's been a little bit of progress, but not nearly enough, and not fast enough. Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer said her state still was not getting enough help from the federal government. She said Michigan just received its allotment from the government's national stockpile. For one hospital, she said it is 747 N95 masks, 204 gowns, 4,467 gloves, and 64 face shields. With the exception of the gloves, that allotment is barely enough to cover one shift at the hospital, Whitmer said. It's not even a full day's worth of shifts. Whitmer, citing efforts from companies interstate, said Michigan has secured more than 4 million gloves, 4 million N95 masks, and thousands of gallons of hand sanitizer. While I can't do overnight what the federal government should have done over the course of months in planning, my team and I are working 24/7 to secure the things we need. Michael Ritchie, a spokesman for Hogan, described the call as candid and constructive, but without a breakthrough that the governors were seeking. While we were not where we want to be on all of the governor's requests, we continue to see incremental progress and hope for some breakthrough in the next few days. Wow, sounds like they're kissing Pence's ass here. Pence has to kiss Trump's ass all the time. I guess he needs his due also. Connected to the governors by video conference, Pence said he hoped their confidence was boosted by recent steps taken by the administration, except that it tanked the economy. Yeah, I know right now the market is rebounding on futures because they're hoping that some stimulus package might get passed. We'll see. In other developments, Congress hit another roadblock in its talks to inject nearly $2 trillion into the economy. Another attempt to advance the aid bill on Capitol Hill failed in a Monday afternoon vote. Meanwhile, governors announced longer school closures. Virginia public schools will remain closed for the rest of the current school year, and certain types of businesses, such as bowling alleys, gyms, and theaters, must close in response to the outbreak, Governor Ralph Northam said. Ned Lamont of Connecticut said that he will soon sign an executive order that will keep the state schools closed until at least April 20th. Lamont previously instituted a 2-week school closure on March 17th. Hogan said he would like to hear more action from the feds on other priority areas governors presented to the White House last Thursday. He said some progress had been made on invoking Title 32 so that the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, can cover the cost of National Guard relief missions and providing states with flexibility to use Guard resources. Hogan noted some federal assistance by extending deadlines relating to the 2020 census. However, he said states are still pushing to extend deadlines for Real ID compliance. Starting October 1st, those without a Real ID compliant license or passport will not be able to board domestic flights, visit a military base, or enter some federal buildings. Welcome to modern America. Well, that takes us to our break. And when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. This week, a tabloid story comes to life. Postponed from a Fall 19 release to coincide with March Madness, the new movie The Way Back is a basketball drama/redemption story. It stars Ben Affleck in a career-high performance as Jack Cunningham, a former high school hoop star who finds himself, 25 years down the road, being tasked by his alma mater with a seemingly hopeless coaching situation. The years haven't been kind to Jack, who's now a full-blown alcoholic working construction between swigs. It's a ways into the film, maybe a bit too far, before we find out the triggering event for his descent. But the coaching gig turns out to be, well, the way back for him. There are a million ways for a plot like this to turn into a melodramatic airball, but director Gavin O'Connor, who worked with Affleck on The Accountant, manages to avoid having this happen. Driving the film is Affleck's portrayal of Jack Cunningham. Given Affleck's well-publicized challenges, it's obvious that he identifies with the character, and his depiction of Jack's alcohol-related rituals and explosive anger seems more heartfelt than researched. The basketball story involves a Catholic League team from Bishop Hayes High School in the working-class Torrance, California area, which has fallen on hard times due to falling enrollment. The nearly winless, less than 10-man squad manages the de rigueur season turnaround amidst friction with the school's administration, often to good comedic effect, and there's a loosely parallel subplot concerning the place of the game in life. In The Way Back, Hoosiers meets Manchester by the Sea, which starred Affleck's brother Casey back in 2016, and tells a formulaic story in a way that avoids simple formulaic answers. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. Catch up with us at take2moviereview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
Hi, it's Tom. Could we humbly suggest your donation to netrootsradio.com? All we've got to run this 24-hour powerhouse of progressive resistance radio is what comes out of our own wallets. And you are our biggest donor. It doesn't take much, $3, $5. Just go to the bottom of our netrootsradio.com page and hit our secure donate button. Heck, you can even make a recurring contribution, and you'll get a wondiferous pair of Netroots radio stickers for application to your backpack, your bumper sticker, or your banjo. Well, it's up to you which backpack you want to put it on. So donate what you'd like at the bottom of our netrootsradio.com's homepage, because you are our biggest donor. netrootsradio.com. Together, we are Resistance Radio.
This Civil Liberties Minute, one in a series on the coronavirus, COVID-19, focuses on the possibility of quarantines. I'm Bill Newman. We start with the proposition that voluntary self-isolation measures will be far more likely to induce cooperation than coercive or mandated measures. Note the success of voluntary self-quarantining. Mandating quarantines and imposing travel restrictions are significant incursions on liberty, and the government should avoid such intrusive measures unless they are scientifically justified and based on public health considerations alone. In considering a quarantine, it must be clear that the benefits outweigh the detriments, and the government must implement any less restrictive alternative and must avoid targeting and stigmatizing vulnerable populations. As for one particularly vulnerable population, undocumented immigrants, ICE should immediately issue public statements similar to those issued during other major disasters that access to care and resources will not expose individuals to an increased risk of immigration enforcement. And do remember this. Especially in a crisis, every person in the United States retains their due process rights. And due process in this situation means that any person subjected to a quarantine, at a minimum, must be able to challenge it, which is only right. Our fundamental freedoms have kept us safe for centuries and will continue to do so. The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the ACLU because freedom can't protect itself.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1912. That was the birthday of Dorothy Height, a civil rights leader and a champion for black women domestic workers. Domestic workers had largely been left out of the labor protections passed as part of the New Deal. Dorothy had grown up seeing firsthand how this exclusion impacted the women who cleaned homes and did other domestic work. Dorothy was born in Richmond, Virginia. Her mother was a nurse in a black hospital, but when the family relocated to Pennsylvania, her mother could not find work as a nurse. Like many black women who moved north during this time period, Dorothy's mother took a job as a domestic worker. She worked long hours for low wages. As Dorothy became involved in civil rights organizing, she remembered the experiences of her mother. In 1957, she was elected president of the National Council of Negro Women. From that position, she became a leader in the effort to improve working conditions for domestic workers. She became one of the leaders of the National Committee on Household Employment. This committee brought together representatives from 23 organizations concerned about domestic labor. Dorothy explained the urgency of the effort, stating, "Let's treat household employment as a profession in which workers have a contract and are assured fair hours and compensation, as well as coverage by our protective labor laws." Today, labor organizers are still fighting to win fair working conditions for domestic workers. Grassroots organizing has led states like New York and California to pass a Domestic Workers' Bill of Rights. Similar efforts are underway in other states to give workers the dignity and the respect that they earn. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com.
I read the news today, oh boy.
It's time for Nicole Sandler's What's News from NicoleSandler.com and the Progressive Voices Network.
Senate Democrats blocked the nearly $2 trillion coronavirus rescue bill from advancing to a full vote for a second straight day on Monday. Democrats argued that the current version of the legislation doesn't do enough for American families. Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia said the bill, which gives the Trump administration wide latitude to dole out a $500 billion fund for businesses, states, and cities, makes the Senate appear, quote, more focused on the big corporations and the health of Wall Street than we are on the health of the people in rural America and Main Street. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell said senators need to strike a deal and get the aid approved quickly, saying, quote, this country is out of time. Now, despite the propaganda being pushed by the Republicans, Elizabeth Warren explained to Bloomberg News the reason Democrats oppose this bill centers on protecting the worker over the big corporations.
In this bill, there are checks for everyday Americans. The reason this bill hasn't gone through is because of Democratic senators. Do you want to be the person that's stopping people from getting their checks to meet their rent at the end of this month?
Excuse me, the reason this bill has not gone through is because of Republican senators and because of a Republican leadership that pretended to negotiate for 3 days with the Democrats and then at the end of that time basically introduced their own bill that did not have compromises and that did not make sure that the money is going down to the grassroots. Look, it's going to take people from both parties to get this through. Now, we've laid out what our principles are, and that is you can't give $500 billion to giant industry and not help people at the grassroots.
So, Senator, why don't we strip out the bailout side of the bill, spend the rest of the week debating that, and then get through the rest and get it done quickly so people can actually receive some money?
So I'd love to strip out the bailout part of the bill and just concentrate on student loans, unemployment insurance, on increasing Social Security, on getting help to small businesses, and on making sure we're getting the money to our hospitals and our testing facilities. I'm glad to do that, Bill.
The Surgeon General, Dr. Jerome Adams, issued a stark warning to Americans on NBC's Today Show.
I want America to understand this week it's going to get bad, and we really need to come together as a nation. I heard the stories that you were just playing, young people out on beaches. We see here in D.C. that the district set up a cam for people to watch the cherry blossoms. You look on the cam, you see more people walking around than you see cherry blossoms. And this is how the spread is occurring. And so we really
You don't think people are taking it seriously?
I think that there are a lot of people who are doing the right things, but I think that, unfortunately, we're finding out a lot of people think this can't happen to them. When you look at what's going on in New York, and we said this at the beginning of our 15 Days to Stop the Spread initiative, that the numbers you see reflect what happened 2 weeks ago. We don't want Dallas or New Orleans or Chicago to turn into the next New York, and it means everyone needs to be taking the right steps right now, and that means stay at home.
The total number of COVID-19 infections in the U.S. rose above 41,000 on Monday, and the death toll surpassed 570. Massachusetts and Maryland joined a growing number of states ordering non-essential businesses to shut down. But Donald Trump suggested in a nearly 2-hour-long briefing that he'd push for reopening U.S. businesses quickly, saying America would soon be open for business because we cannot let the cure be worse than the problem itself. And he claimed more people would die as a result of a bad economy than from the coronavirus? I seriously couldn't make this stuff up if I tried.
America continues to mobilize every segment of our society to turn the tide in the battle against the virus. I want Americans to know that we will get through this challenge. The hardship will end. It will end soon. Normal life will return, and our economy will rebound. We cannot let the cure be worse than the problem itself. This is not a country that was built for this. It was not built to be shut down. At the end of the 15-day period, we'll make a decision as to which way we want to go, where we want to go, the timing, and essentially we're referring to the timing of the opening. Essentially the opening of our country. You have almost 160 million jobs in this country now, the most ever, by far the most ever. The number of jobs, almost 160 million. So we can't turn that off and think it's going to be wonderful. There'll be tremendous repercussions. There will be a tremendous death from that. Death. You're talking about death. Probably more death from that than anything that we're talking about with respect to the virus.
The sad truth is that in the real world, the United States has the highest rate of increase in the world, with numbers rocketing up with each successive day. Healthcare workers across the country are begging for more supplies, specifically respirator masks. The shortage has gotten so bad that people are sewing masks to send to hospitals as a stopgap. The CEO of 3M, the largest U.S. producer of medical face masks, said all of their masks should go to healthcare workers on the front lines. The acute demand has put pressure on Trump to activate the Defense Production Act to mandate private companies to mass produce needed medical supplies during the crisis, but he's reluctant to go there. Now, the announcement by Trump of possible treatments for the virus has sparked another rush on supplies. Some U.S. states have had to take measures to prevent stockpiling and shortage of the drugs chloroquine and hydroxychloroquine, which are used to treat malaria and other conditions and could possibly treat the coronavirus. But there's no guarantee they'd work or that they're safe. But a man in Arizona died, and his wife is in critical condition after they tried to self-administer chloroquine phosphate to prevent the virus. Over in the UK, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson on Monday announced a nationwide lockdown of at least 3 weeks to reduce the spread of the virus. That means every non-essential shop is shut down, public gatherings are effectively banned, and funerals will be the only social events allowed. Police will have the authority to issue fines and disperse gatherings to enforce compliance. Johnson said the rules will be under constant review and the restrictions could be eased after 3 weeks. He said only a, quote, huge national effort can slow the virus and ensure the UK's health system is not overwhelmed. The Federal Reserve on Monday announced it would buy as much government-backed debt as necessary to support the economy through the crisis. For the first time in history, the U.S. Central Bank also said it would buy corporate debt to make sure struggling companies have access to the money they need to stay afloat. The Fed efforts to keep credit flowing through fallout from the pandemic now exceeds what it did to help the economy recover from the 2008 financial crisis. In a statement, the Fed saying, the coronavirus pandemic is causing tremendous hardship across the United States and around the world. Aggressive efforts must be taken across the public and private sectors to limit the losses to jobs and incomes and to promote a swift recovery once the disruptions abate. Now, if you're one of the millions of people who've been furloughed or fired due to COVID-19, there are some companies hiring right now. Retailers like CVS and Walmart are rushing to hire workers laid off from other companies, with CVS looking to add 50,000 positions and Walmart 150,000. Albertsons, which owns several food and drug retail chains, wants to hire 30,000 new employees. And Amazon and grocery service Instacart have seen online order and delivery demand skyrocket. Both are hiring. Amazon planning to add 100,000 people for full and part-time roles in its delivery network and fulfillment centers. And there's other news. Colorado became the 22nd state to abolish the death penalty on Monday. Governor Jared Polis signed legislation banning capital punishment in the state and commuted the death sentences of death row inmates Robert Ray, Mario Owens, and Nathan Dunlap to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Summer Olympics in Tokyo will be postponed. This according to veteran International Olympic Committee member Dick Pound. He said, on the basis of the information the IOC has, postponement has been decided. This would be the first time in history the Olympic Games have ever been postponed. And finally, California's utility Pacific Gas and Electric has agreed to plead guilty to 84 counts of involuntary manslaughter in connection with the state's devastating 2018 Camp Fire. PG&E also agreed to plead guilty to one count of starting the fire, which state investigators say began with a failure of the company's electrical lines. Under the deal, PG&E will establish a $13.5 billion trust to compensate victims of the Camp Fire and other wildfires, as well as pay hundreds of millions of dollars to local entities affected by the blazes. The utility filed for bankruptcy in January of 2019 under the pressure of billions of dollars in claims related to the fires. The Camp Fire killed 85 people and destroyed thousands of structures. And that's just a bit of what's news for now. I'm Nicole Sandler. If you appreciate these reports and the Nicole Sandler Show, I hope you'll consider making a contribution. My work is 100% listener supported, and I can't do it without your help. Find out more at NicoleSandler.com. While you're there, please click that donate button.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. We always begin, whether from around the world, along the banks of the Rogue River in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 40 degrees Fahrenheit, expecting only a high of about 48. Rain and snow showers this morning, more at elevation. I don't think it's going to actually snow here at the mothership. And, of course, that snow will change to showers in the afternoon hours at elevation, and even more showers here just below elevation. Winds will be out of the southwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Currently, they are out of the northwest, a negligible 1 to 2 miles per hour, pushing a bit of weather our way that has, it looks like, oh my, lots of rain and snow at elevation. Partly cloudy skies overnight, a low of around 32 degrees. Winds will be out of the southwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. And then scattered snow showers early tomorrow. And a chance of scattered thunderstorms later, a high of 49. Winds will be light and variable. Expecting, about a quarter inch of rain today and tonight. And add on to that for tomorrow, too. So a little bit over a quarter of an inch. Pollen is still rated at none, and I don't know why. Because there's pollen out there. The air quality index regionally is good at 35 parts per million, and the daytime UV index has ticked down a notch to 4, which is in the moderate range. Barometric pressure is falling at 30.05 inches. Visibility is down to 5 miles, and relative humidity is at 88%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property. And these people positively live around the world. London is 59 degrees and sunny. Paris, 56 and sunny. Rome, 50 degrees and partly cloudy with a chance of thunderstorms and a flood watch. Actually, not a chance of a flood watch. They are in a flood watch. Kyiv is 38 degrees and fair. Kabul, 50 degrees and partly cloudy. Hong Kong is 68 and partly cloudy. Tokyo, 43 and clear, with a wind advisory, by the way. Sydney, Australia, 70 degrees and partly cloudy. San Francisco, California, 50 degrees and cloudy. And New York is a bright 45 degrees Fahrenheit and sunny. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property. And these people positively live around the world. Dunai and Bernadette Szabo of Reuters bring us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Peter Rostas doesn't want to have any reason to use the gun he was buying, but the young Hungarian father of one was taking no chances with a coronavirus epidemic he fears may bring out the worst in some people, so he's going to be worser. It's a precautionary measure, Rostas, age 33, said as he queued outside a small Budapest shop selling non-military grade weapons that require no license. I'd rather be laughing later than find myself in a conflict with nothing but a broomstick. You don't know what a broomstick can do, buddy. Really. Hungarians have sought an increasing number to arm themselves for protection in recent weeks, fearing a possible unraveling of law and order if severe shortages set in as the coronavirus pandemic spreads. Gun controls are tight in Eastern Europe, as across the rest of the continent, but demand for small arms amid growing anxiety over coronavirus has risen elsewhere in the region. The Czech Arms Manufacturers Association said shop owners had reported rising demand and a double-digit rise in sales. Wow, just like here in the U.S. About 300,000 people hold licenses for guns in each of the Czech Republic and Hungary, both with about 10 million inhabitants. Licenses are not mandatory for some light arms. We are selling 5 times as much as in a normal March, said Gaber Voss, who runs 3 gun shops in the Hungarian capital, including the one where Rostas bought his gas pistol. We could sell 15 times more if we had any more rubber bullet weapons, but we ran out. The shop, little bigger than a phone booth and tucked inside a suburban shopping center on the edge of Budapest, was hardly designed for an onrush of customers, but last week brought a heavy stream of people from all walks of life. Hungary has registered 167 cases of coronavirus, with 7 deaths, but Prime Minister Viktor Orban said on Monday the true number was probably much higher, and since we're the worst, get a gun so you can be even worser.
Je te donne c'est mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle. C'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer. Mes automnes, quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers, c'est tout.
Anonymous worker bees and Reuters bring us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Angela Merkel's initial test for coronavirus came back negative. A government spokesman said yesterday, Monday, adding that the German chancellor would undergo further tests. Merkel, age 65, went into quarantine on Sunday after coming into contact with an infected doctor. German Vice Chancellor Olaf Scholz said earlier on Monday that Merkel was healthy but working from home. The test was negative, the spokesman said. Further tests will follow. Merkel had on Friday afternoon received a vaccine shot against pneumonia, or pneumococcus, a pneumonia-causing bacteria, from the doctor, and she went into quarantine after learning of his positive test result. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day, but you do know that Netroots Radio will broadcast on, and we'll meet up tomorrow for Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks, and we'll meet up here tomorrow, right here, in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théâtres, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair. T'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.